National Housing Policy 2012 is a process of providing safe, comfortable, attractive, and functional, affordable houses. So, now, the process of providing safe, comfortable, attractive, functional, and affordable houses in a setting that is comfortable and environmentally friendly. The housing sector contributes to a large extent of the GDP of most developed countries. We have not achieved that in Nigeria. In Nigeria, the housing sector contributes to less than 5% of the GDP. But in advanced countries, you have housing sector contributing up to 30 to 70% of their GDP. So there's still a long way to go in housing in Nigeria. The issues of the problems of housing in the urban setting is different from housing in the rural setting. In the urban setting in Nigeria, the problem is that of quantity and accessibility. We don't have adequate number of housing units, and have challenge to access to those houses that are even available. Now, in the rural settings, houses may be available, but the standard of infrastructure is not adequate and is not, or sometimes absent. This is important to understand why the migration occurs. Now, that policy was changed with government being a facilitator. Government wants to play the role of a facilitator, an enabler. Now, this change is critical because if government is a facilitator and not a direct player in the provision, the roles are different. Now, the facilitating role entails government providing the enabling environment for the private sector to come in and provide houses. Now, in the past, government has been actually involved in the delivery of houses through its agencies, like the federal housing, and at the state level through the housing corporations. Now, we may ask, why is housing such a critical issue? We know that for every person, we need a house or a place to lay our head. And it's when you have that, you can even start thinking of what is to do. Housing is a critical need of every human being, and that is why it is such an important issue. Now, as I stated, people live in townships, people live in rural settings. But why is the tendency of people moving from the rural setting to the township? There are many factors that are associated with the rural-urban migration. And of course, to understand what the rural settings are, we all know these are areas that are sparsely populated, have less infrastructure, and are basically dependent on agriculture as their means of existence. While the townships have industries, they have housing, they have job opportunities, they have all sorts of attraction, infrastructure that attracts people. So basically, people migrate from the rural settings to the township because of economic factors. Economic factors, they are looking for employment opportunities, they are looking for business opportunities, they are looking for where they can express themselves and get satisfaction. So economic factors are critical in the rural urban migration. Now, some people, because they have trained themselves and changed their way of living, from being a farmer, most of us started from that background. Children of farmers, you got educated, now you have education, you want to look for job opportunity. You can't stay without education in the farm and get your satisfaction. So now people move to urban settings to get job satisfaction. So that causes rural-urban migration. Now, we have had situations where certain areas that were actually local or rural areas have been transformed into urban settings. This has come around, about by state creation of local government headquarters, and even if we take Abuja, the federal capital, it was purely a rural setting, but it has become an urban setting now because of the establishment of the new federal capital territory. So, new towns can generate rural, urban settings that will attract rural-urban migration. The quest for better life, to get better opportunities, it attracts young men to move from the rural settings to urban locations. Of course, lack of infrastructure. We believe that the absence of infrastructure in the rural setting has been critical in the rural-urban migration. People are exposed to power supply, potable water supply, good roads, and this attracts young men to move from the rural areas that are not provided with such facilities or amenities. So this lack of infrastructure in the rural areas has been a cause for the rural-urban migration. Now, what are the challenges of the rural-urban migration? Of course, where the town is not, and does not anticipate a large wave of movement of people into it, you start having congestion, you start having inadequacy in housing, which leads to the development of slums and squatter settlements. People who move in cannot afford to get the houses that are available in the township. Now they start building squatter settlements, and now this leads to crime and poor governance. It puts pressure on even the infrastructure that are provided within the city. We're all living witnesses of Abuja, how the situation has developed from a city that was serene and traffic free to a high congestion. Most times before you can move in the town, you find it very difficult. These are issues, these are challenges that have been brought about by huge migration of people into Abuja, and these are some of the challenges we get from rural-urban migration into townships. Now, there are several ministries, there are several agencies that have been put in place by government to take care of housing. We have our ministry, which is the Federal Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development, that spearheads policy and delivery of housing in the country. We have the Federal Capital Territory, the Federal Housing Authority as an agency of government. We have the state governments and several other institutions that are charged with this responsibility. Despite this, there's still a huge gap in housing in the country. Now, policies of government have been put in place. One of the policies which we are discussing is the social housing policy, which targets the low and the very, very poor income group. Up till now, the country has not established a clear policy to address those group of people until this decree or this act, which is being processed through the National Assembly. We believe when it is passed, there will be a good guideline on how to deliver houses for the low and the very poor segment of the citizens. So what we suggest as a way forward in addressing the rural-urban migration, first is to have a comprehensive policy on rural development. The rural development, as unknown, is mostly to be done by the local government, but there is no guideline. We have a housing policy, we have an urban regional development policy, but don't have a policy on rural development. We believe there should be a policy that guides rural development, which will not form the document that will be used by different levels of government. We believe the provision of housing at the rural, housing not just in the housing by itself, but housing that incorporates the activities of the rural settings. Most of these people are farmers. Housing that will build around their activity will also attract the young men to engage in the activities of farming and also have housing. That will be addressed under the social housing policy, which targets not just providing housing, but organizing the communities through cooperatives that are producing specific groups of specific types of crops or specific agricultural engagement. They'll be involved in specific agricultural engagement and will have houses to support their activities in the location. We believe beyond the federal government, institutions, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, all must partake in the delivery of housing. Our authority, the Federal Housing Authority, is poised to provide both technical and advisory capacity, capacity to people who may be willing to engage in housing delivery. And this will be done through the social housing policy as being enacted by government.